All right, peace and blessings, everybody. Haki Ammi here, the Success God. I hope you're well. Get ready to do this piece. We have Brother Doshon Farad and Empress Chi on the anniversary of the Million Man March. This is an interview I did a little while ago, so just wanted to play it back. Today is the anniversary of the Million Woman March, not million women's, like I've been saying sometimes. So let me go ahead and play it. All right.
All right. Good evening. You're tuned in to Haki and Success Scholar. I am the Success Scholar. Haki Ammi. Thank you all for tuning in, listening in. Your broadcast. We are broadcasting live here at elifemedia.net. Thank you all for tuning in. And we are here each and every Monday, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. And for those that in the background. But yeah, so definitely want to see. It's been a beautiful day so far. We got a wonderful guest here coming up. It's going to be calling in a minute, but I just want to, first say thank you to my queen who held the showdown last week. In my absence, I was up at Coppin State University actually for a play called Suspects in America. It's really, really good play. It's very interesting, talking about hip hop being on trial and racism and what's going on with the system of racism, white supremacy in this society. So I have a wonderful co-host that's joining me, a brother I've known. It's been about at least 15 years. He may not know we go back that long, but I have my co-host, my brother Doshon Farad, a wonderful journalist. He's been doing some independent conscious journalism work. He's worked with BT and what else, brother? A little bit of everybody, right? He's been around. So have brother Doshon Farad joining me. He's working with Your Black World now, right? Yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you. So yeah, and he's been doing radio and news and radio and TV, television for quite some time.
What he would call me, brother, and even yourself, we refer to as multimedia journalists.
Multimedia journalists. Okay, thank you. That's the proper term, right?
Because we're TV, radio, print, online. So we write.
Yes.
So we're multimedia.
Yes. And so, so I brought this gentleman, this brother, in to help me out to have this conversation because he, covers a lot of different stories, and we are here on. Matter of fact, I think I met you at the Million Man March, brother. Something like that, some kind of march, but it was some time ago.
With 95, we went out. I was in high school.
Yeah,
that was my senior high school.
I don't know if we were there, but it was.
I was there.
Okay.
Million Man March.
Great. And so this is the anniversary of the Million Man March, but I have a wonderful sister who called in. We had a few complications on my end, but I just want to thank her. I've known this sister, and she's been doing some tremendous work internationally. And over the years, I know her as Empress Chi. That's what I've known her. But and let me get her proper name correct, but I'll let her tell it to you, Dr. Chino.
Ooh.
Chilo.
Yes, greetings.
Greetings. Now I'm looking at it because I got a little confused a little earlier. But can you pronounce the name? Because we know you. Well, I know you as Empress Chi. So.
But, yeah, and that's why people oftentimes will call me Empress Chi,
right?
Which is the short version of my name, because for some reason. Some of our people have a hard time pronouncing our name.
Okay. I want to get it right.
It's just break it in syllables. It's Chionesu.
Chionesu.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. Well, just to let everybody know, I've known this sister for some years. I haven't seen her in a while, but we both hosted shows on Harambe Radio.
Yeah.
And I did mine for 4 years there. I was on Tuesday nights. I was on 7 to 8, and sometimes I did 2 hours for a long time. And it was once or twice that I did a 3-hour show. That so that's where my experience in radio comes from. And she had a show, there, and we just got a good collaborative network and family with Harambe Radio.
Yeah.
So always love and respect. But I know you've been in a Philly area organizing for some years, correct?
Yeah, I'm from Philly.
Okay, okay. And let everybody know, I have on the line. She is the founder, architect. The she created the vision for the Millions Women's March.
She's a bad sister.
Yeah, which was 20 years ago, coming up on October the 25th, correct?
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah, so we coming
100%.
up on 20 years of some of the most strongest, empowered Black women on the planet. So let's first go back to that day. Well, what gave you the vision? I mean, we're here on the Million Man March anniversary, 22 years, but I said we gonna of course do our thing with that, but I got an opportunity to galvanize and organize and get people to the anniversary coming up here in Philadelphia, coming up in 2 weeks. So what was the vision you had for it?
Well, that it's really interesting to even think about that question, because 20 years ago, now that I look at it, it was really to focus on at that time, of course, the various things that are of interest, that are really affecting our women and girls. That, of course, was the primary, but that was never separated from the advancement of our people as a whole. So, unlike other people who might be focusing on just women's issues, that was never our intention. Of course, yes, it was to make certain that our women were primary in terms of our specific interests, goals, you name it. But again, it was always connected to our families and communities. So what we realized 20 years ago was that there was a lot going on with women, our women, let me be very specific, that was really not being looked at, addressed, and certainly not dealt with in the kind of way that it needed to be. Perfect example, over these past years, if one pays close attention, you will have learned, certainly, or have seen in your community more violence and abuse of our women and girls throughout this country. And I'm not just talking about domestic violence. That's not it. The other thing that you will note is that when it comes to the increase of incarceration, we know that our brothers have often been incarcerated by the system. But what people did not know, or so I say even kind of turned away from knowing, is that during the past 10 years in particular, there's been an increase of the Black woman in these prisons, you see. And what a lot of folks also don't realize is that while it's all horrendous, while it's all, as far as we're concerned, human rights violations, the fact of the matter is in our community, when you hear of different programs dealing with prison reform or other kind of issues relevant to so-called correctional facilities, you very rarely hear any of that being applied to the women. You see, the women prisons all over this country. And so these were some of the things that we knew 20 years ago. We also knew that the effects of crack cocaine had its most devastating impact on the Black woman and child. Not that, again, that it didn't affect all of us, because it most certainly did, our brothers, our sons, our fathers. But this was the first time that you had ever heard anywhere, anytime, that a Black woman has sold her child for a drug. So we knew that this was extremely serious, and it was. And now, 20 years later, we now see some of the effects of these various things. And again, we have to ask ourselves, how is this going to impact our children? How is it impacting our children? And I think, again, for those who have paid any kind of attention then certainly you know the answer to that too.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, our women and girls needed and do need specialized attention like anything else. If there is a specific type of illness or malady, you have to look at what type of cure, what type of treatment are you going to give to it. If it's something wrong with your heart, you're not going to try to deal with the same treatment that you would have for your foot. So
Sure.
that goes the same for us as people. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot apply the same remedies or the same kinds of whatever it is to all situations. You have to specialize in something oftentimes and deal with it accordingly. And so this is what the Million Woman March was designed to do. One of many things, of course, but certainly our women there's no other like our women. There are people who want to be like our women, but that will never happen, no matter what they try to do, tanning or whatever else is not going to work.
Yes.
And so we know that we've got to take care of ourselves. And so the Million Woman March, of course, is about that. Taking care of our women, better helping in the protection and in the defense of our women, through a lot of institutionalized racism, for example. And so what we realized 20 years ago is that there was no real representation of the Black woman for the most part from a national perspective and then apply that to international. In many of our communities, there are lots of groups and organizations that our women are a part of, but when you look at that from a larger scope, it was null and void. And so the Million Woman March changed that.
Yes, Sister Chi, this is Doshon Farad. Beloved, I'm glad you mentioned those who wish to be like Black women, and I'm glad you mentioned the protection of Black women, which is actually what my next question was going to be about. 2 weeks ago, I had covered the March for Black Women, quote, that was the name of it, here in D.C.
Oh, that was the name of it?
Yes, sir. 2 weeks ago, in
okay.
which Marissa Alexandra spoke, Gina Belafonte had spoke, Michaela Angela Davis had spoke, and what they kept emphasizing throughout the rally, and even when I interviewed Miss Belafonte, they said that Black transgendered women are the most oppressed in society. Now, that was amazing to me because that was like a total upgrade or a total downgrade to what Brother Malcolm had said when he said that the Black woman was the most unprotected member of society. So I'm a little bit confused. Now, how do you address that? There seems to be an attempt to attack, I would say, Black womanhood. Right now, you all, and I'm not at all trying to mock anyone who is transgendered, but it seems now that actual Black women are being pushed to the back. First, it was you all that were the most oppressed in society. Now it's Black transgendered women. How do you address that? And will this be addressed at the anniversary?
Well, I'll be honest with you and say I really don't address it. And what I mean by that is it's not that it's something that we do not deal with in its proper context. But at the same time, I don't put a lot of time and energy into it because it's a distraction. And usually, you have to be smart enough not to buy into stupid stuff. And what that means is that a lot of times things are put in our way to, have you spend a lot of time and energy on it. So I'm going to make it very simple. You were right by saying you were confused. Well, it's a very confusing situation because you're dealing with a confused kind of interaction. What we realized when the Million Woman March happened 20 years ago, that was such a powerful thing. It was powerful in more ways than one. And the enemy knew that. They knew that this was something that they had to try to squash or destroy. So initially, they literally had people within our internal structure who were there to destroy it. And that was one of the reasons why it took us a little longer to bring things forward, is because we were actually infiltrated. And we were infiltrated with people who were extreme opportunists at best. And certainly, other kinds of things in general, And so we had to go through that whole process that many groups, organizations, and movements have experienced, and that is within the internal structure or circle, you had these elements that were really working for the enemy. And the Men and Women March experienced that. It was never meant to be an event, just an event. It was always designed to be a movement from day one. So now, in 2016, I announced at the United Nations during a session in March. They have sessions every year for Women's History Month. I announced at the United Nations that the Million Woman March reunion was coming for October 2017. So what that meant was other people knew that we was getting ready to come forward. And again, not just in terms of just a gathering, but that we was really getting ready to put some things in place. The next thing we know, come January, we hear this group calling themselves Million Women March.
Oh, yes. Listen, G, I remember, listen up, if I may interject, when they were using that title, the first person I thought of was you, and I said, Sister Chi and the rest of us about to raise some serious hell. But go ahead, sis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was never us. We had nothing to do with that. And they attempted to use the name until we told them, we will not only crucify you publicly in the media, but we will also sue you. So they changed the name to Women's March on Washington.
Quickly.
And when they realized the backlash, the blacklash was so strong, they then put some black faces in there to cover their tracks. And the black faces that they put in there, one in particular is very well known in certain circles, having an affiliation, having worked for and been very close to Al Sharpton. They used that person to become involved as the poster child for to represent black women. It was never designed for black women. And then there was this excuse from black females that, well, we're going to get in this because we want to make sure our voices are heard. Oh, please, really?
Well, no, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Anyway,
there were several sisters that endorsed it, and I was very surprised that some of the sisters who endorsed it, for some of the reasons you're mentioning, that were encouraging black women to be. I'm talking about some of our most progressive sisters who are actually encouraging black women to participate. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you see, brother, this is why, as far as we're concerned, it's a wonderful thing. Truth is one of the most beautiful things you can see and embrace. And so what we realized was, and you're correct, there were women who did, go along with that situation. It helped us to better know who and what we was dealing with. That now we don't have to guess. Now we don't have to think twice. We know where certain sisters are coming from. Because anyone that sat back and co-signed that, clearly, they were not in sync with not only the Million Woman March, but the real history and legacy of our ancestors in the fight for justice and freedom. You see? And so this really helped us. It helped us to better, if not expose, but certainly to identify people that we need to be careful with in the future. And so now you had this thing that came up, as you mentioned a few weeks ago. And all of that, by the way, was all intentional because they know the real deal is coming.
Well, now, Sister Chi, I want to let you know something. You know what, respect, during the question and answer, during the press conference, right before the March rally took place, I was almost snapped on for asking the question. I said, look, the upcoming, the 20th anniversary of the Million Woman March is coming up. How would you respond to people that feel that you have co-opted the name, the message? Wow. Okay. And, I literally, some of the sisters there literally like the nerve of this nigga to ask this question.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sister Chief.
Well, again, it's a wonderful thing. It has helped to identify what we need to now know, because as we say right now, the lines are being drawn in the sand.
Yeah, right.
And this is a beautiful time now, because 50 years ago or however long ago, Black women didn't have a choice. For those that, wanted to be more active in certain social political arenas or what have you, there wasn't really a lot out there for them. You see, you could join the National Council of Negro Women or, something like that. But for the most part, there wasn't much out there going on. And so somewhat progressive Black women ended up joining these feminist groups and these white-led groups because they really wanted to do some things, and it really wasn't anything out there for them. Well, that's not the excuse now or the reason now.
I want to ask Sister Chi, I'm glad you mentioned feminism and joining different groups. Over the past 5 years, due to the killings of police shootings of Black men in particular, Black people in general, and of course the advent of the Black Lives Matter movement, we've seen a term that's been in existence since 1989 that has actually had a resurgence. The term intersectionality. How do you feel about so-called African Americans uniting with different movements? Because we've at these various marches and demonstrations that I've attended across the country, there's always an encouragement that Black people should unite with with white liberals, white feminists, the LGBT community. What is the Million Woman March's position on intersectionality? Should we be specifically Black? Do you agree with Dr. John Henry Clark when he said to Black people, quote, "You have no friends"?
No, let me just say this. This is why the Million Women March is probably one of the most powerful things on this planet when it comes to Black African liberation. And we have been pushed to the side. And we've been pushed to the side by well-known groups and organizations who are known in the Black liberation struggle. You see, for 20 straight years, we can ask the question, how many of these groups and organizations have invited me to anything? Be it Black History Month, be it Women's History Month, be it Kwanzaa, be it a conference or whatever. In these past 20 years,
I can bear witness to that.
when you do the analysis of why would these very well-known so-called Black groups that are about social justice, self-determination and all this, why would they not reach out to us? Meaning the Million Woman March, which is now evolved into a universal movement, by the way. But why would we not be included to be on a panel discussion or whatever? For most of these groups in 20 years. And I tell you that one of the reasons is because two things. Number one, we have never interacted with socially or even politically, except, you go to some rallies and, people are there. Well, cool. But we don't, I don't have lunch and dinner with people, that I don't have a direct kind of connection to. You're not coming to my house. I'm not trying to go to yours. You see, we don't have that kind of interaction. So what we found is that with a lot of our groups today, it's so much, it's very foggy in terms of what relationship do you really have with these other people who are supposed to be sympathetic or, inclined to go along with what you're trying to do for our people. Okay, cool. I deal with and understand allyship. Okay. But, I know where to draw those lines at, and most people know where to draw that line at with me.
Now, Sister Chi, beloved, another thing that was addressed 2 weeks ago, and of course you had touched on it minutes ago, concerning the abuse of Black women by Black men. I noticed at millionwomansmarch20.com, your webpage, you're asking the question, will Black men be there for you? How is the response coming right now from brothers? And how was it 20 years ago in 1997, the response from our brothers, some Black men?
Well, I tell you, and I'm very disappointed. I'm extremely disappointed because we have maintained a position, meaning Million Woman March, that always upheld and honored our brothers, always. We never would dream that we would now be at this place, having put this call out to our brothers to join us, putting them in a situation and in a position of honor. Because when we started organizing this over a year ago, 2 years ago actually, we said, look, this is what we want the brothers to do. We want the brothers to come together, work with us, support us as we supported them. But in this particular reunion, we have it designed so that the brothers are going to surround the sisters. Wherever we assemble at, the brothers is going to surround the sisters, right? And the whole idea was to send a message saying that in order for you to get to the sisters, you got to come through the brothers, right? And so we figured that the men would love that because we're showing the people that we're united and that the brothers are there not only to support, but also to help protect, right? Well, let me tell you, we sent.
She's still with us, Sister G?
Are you here, Sister Chi? Let me tell her call back in.
You know what? You know, I'm glad she's actually touching on that because these have been some of the concerns that have been raised by many Black women activists, not just feminists, that they're not getting enough support from Black men, and also what's been touched upon is what many Black women perceive as the growing hatred and hostility on the part of Black men towards them. And so, as Dick Gregory has stated quite some time ago, he said that Black women live in have double dose. He said they live in a sexist and a racist society. He said, so not only do they have to worry about crazy white folks, they have to worry about me, meaning Black men. So I'm glad that, you know, she's kind of touched on.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, you know, I've recently have attempted to be more conscious in terms of understanding. Like there's a picture floating around, and it said, would you want, or something about, would you want some sisters to walk through this group of men? There was some brothers kind of standing around with a sundress or something to that effect. But, you know, it's a lack of respecting the identity of manhood that many Black men in this society, unfortunately, are getting their images of manhood from television, you know,
Some would say
rap music.
A word that we keep, 3 words we keep hearing is white male patriarchy. We keep hearing that part, and so we have to ask ourselves the question: say the brothers who are guilty of abusing Black women, we have to ask ourselves how much of that is originated in or based in Eurocentricity or white male patriarchy. You know, us being under, you know, for over 500 years,
being dominated. I mean, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, most of us, you know, when we don't develop that conscious levels of awareness, you know, you go with what you see and what you taught, and unfortunately, real masculine men in this society, you know, can actually be a threat.
Well, we know, we've noticed. Actually, we've noticed that. Actually, as a matter, you know, we know, of course, that's one of the things that Francis Cress Wilson addressed. Dr. Jawanza Kanjufu, Dr. Olafari Hutchinson has addressed. Irritated Genie has addressed this. Minister Farrakhan has addressed this. The threat of the strong Black man, but at the same time, some have said that the pressure. Many have said that unfortunately, Black men oftentimes we bow to the pressure of a Western society to be more masculine than we have to be as a way of surviving. And as a way of surviving. And I'm not justifying.
No. It's understood. It's understood, and this is where, you know, maturity and growth takes place. You know, individuals knowing where to assert themselves. You know, and you know, the whole immature Black man, you know, unfortunately big and strong and still being emasculated either economically or in other ways, just disrespected, you know, that whole disrespect reality. And sometimes individuals don't know necessarily when to engage, you know, in an aggressive type of self-defense posture, you know, intellectually. That's what I spoke about earlier this morning.
Imbalance, of course, you know, we need that melodic balance. So what I definitely appreciate about Sister Chi and what the sisters are doing is just like 20 years ago, they're actually calling for balance, that melodic balance between woman and man, the female masculine energy, you know, that melodic balance, once again, the ankh.
Right.
And this is not listen what I'm saying carefully, family. this is not the, I didn't say typical. I said this is not the stereotypical black male bashing that unfortunately black women have often been accused of by black men. You know, this, you know, this is she's, you know, Sister Chi is asking, you know, brothers, we want you to be we want you, we need your protection. And I really, me personally, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know, sincerely, and I've known this sister for some years, but I mean, and we've been out of the loop with each other on different levels. You know, as because I had no idea, you know, knowing the history of the Million Woman March, but I had no idea actually, you know, how she felt in terms of, you know, particular groups not necessarily being supportive of this initiative, and it could be, you know, that power dynamic, you know, in the society.
Or we have to ask ourselves, or we have,
go ahead, you're good.
Or we have to ask ourselves how much of that opposition is being fueled by white liberalism, by white feminism, but also how much is that being fueled by the black bourgeoisie? You know, in other words, y'all are too militant. Y'all into that pro-black Afrocentric stuff. We have to ask us, you know, because you know we have to.
Absolutely.
We have, and it's a.
All right, she's back. She's back.
She's black. She's black. Go ahead,
I'm black.
Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, so we got interrupted there for a moment. Okay, but the main thing I wanted to stress, really kind of convey, is that there is an attempt to make certain that the black woman is that there's confusion. Oh, you were asking me about the brothers.
Yes, ma'am.
That's where we left off at. We were really and still are very not just surprised, but we're hurt. We're really hurt because we thought it would be a very beautiful thing for the world to see the black man surrounding the black woman in a way of protection and love and so forth. You know, supporting us having our day. We deserved that. We earned it. But that didn't happen. Black men, unfortunately, and believe me, I'm going to name some names in a minute. Not just yet, because you can't have people and saying, "Oh yeah, we love the black woman, we love the goddess, we love the queen," and all that,
and then be on YouTube, and then be on YouTube, then be on YouTube, Sister Chi, and they the first one. They'll call a black woman a female dog. For anyone, but go ahead, sis. I'm sorry.
But see, I'm talking about the ones. See, the ones that do that, I already know where they're coming from. That's cool. We know what to do with them and how to deal with them. I'm talking about the ones that be all on YouTube and at the lectures and all
that's
that.
That's what I was talking about too. Gee, we talking about them too, beloved. Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm saying. Yes, we talking about them. Maybe yes, ma'am. I was about to write an article about them too. Go ahead.
This is your mothers, your daughters, your sisters, your wives, your grandmothers coming to this to be together, to enjoy one another as women, as sisters, and you can't support that? Ooh. And then we asked the brothers, we said, brothers, can you spare us $1? $1. We said, could you support, because we're self-determined. Never had a grant. Never had corporate sponsoring. You see, and we've been continuing to work for 20 straight years. So we figured, okay, we've demonstrated our commitment, we've demonstrated our capability. Can we get a little support? And let me tell you how that turned out. So now we're really struggling because we got to pay for a stage, lighting, not lighting, sound, and so forth. And so, again, why? Why should we have to go through that? You know, people spend $1 on chewing gum.
Yes.
And we couldn't get $1? Oh, my gosh. So, but again, going back to, looking at some of the females who decided to support, we call it white female privilege.
Yes, talk about it. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't go ahead, sis. I see that all the time.
Oh no. I mean, that's what it is. See, it's one thing to talk about white supremacy, or what we call attempted global white supremacy. It's one thing to talk about it, but you have to at some point look at it and break it down. Isn't that what Brother Malcolm said? Make it plain. Well, we have to look at not just white supremacy from the context of a Trump or Chump or whatever, but what are some of the other components of this from a systemic standpoint? And I can guarantee you that one of those actual operative components is the white female privilege stuff. That's an operative. You see, and that's why years ago when you had things like affirmative action that came into play or came into existence, good, bad, or indifferent, it was supposed to try to help our people. Well, who ended up benefiting, if not the most, certainly as much? White females. You see, so we're used to seeing and knowing how they operate. And now, under the guise of women's rights, well, we have a poster series, brothers and sisters, that we hope you all will look at and support, because it talks about, when you say women's rights, are they really talking about us? Because you got to remember, we used to clean their behinds, nurse their children, wash their clothes, cook their food, and their husbands and sons and brothers used to rape us. So now, what part of women's rights are you dealing with that?
Wow. Yes. Quick question. Has Roland Martin, Minister Farrakhan, or Al Sharpton reached out to you for the 20-year anniversary of the Millions Woman March?
Absolutely not.
None of them.
Absolutely not.
Wow, he had the woman on the Roland on that Monday after the march. He had the woman
Roland
on
Martin did?
for the march, the DC thing. He had the woman. I mean, he didn't call out the sister Chi.
Wow.
Of course not.
The woman that was over the thing.
And he knows who I am. He knows about the Million Woman March, as many of them do. But you have to remember again, the Million Woman March really is about our women in the context of being really that strong Black woman, from a historical perspective in particular. And what that means is we walk side by side with our men, proudly, not behind them. See? Now, for some, that might be a little, unnerving for you, and all I can say is get over it, because in reality, we're talking about a people and a history that has a certain type of reality. And until we get back to that or more into that, the imbalance is only going to worsen, you see. So it's not like we are attempting to be more than you or, above you or whatever, some ridiculous stuff that people say. We're trying to copy you and all that. I've heard so much ridiculous stuff from some of our brothers to try to really remove you from the fact that they don't want to step up and see. And I got some serious brothers, trust me, and love them dearly, and would fight without a shadow of a doubt, but the facts are the facts. And you do have, just as with our women, there are an extremely amount of weak Black folks right about now. And so what we're saying is that as women, we need to get with our sisters. We need to help our sisters. We need to help strengthen them, help heal them, help bring them forward. Men have to do the same thing with the brothers. We can't do with the brothers what the men can do with the brothers, and we're not trying to. And at the same time, the brothers can't do what we got to do with the sisters. We have to recognize those realities. We have young daughters, and only the women in certain ways can interact with those young daughters, just like in certain ways there are men that can only interact with boys in a certain way.
Now, Sister Chi, I must ask you, I'm glad that you actually raised that concern, because what I'm noticing is that you have a lot of, and I'm not at all putting you in the category of feminists, but you have a lot of Black feminists who will complain that Black men are no good and that Black men are abusive. But then when they see Black men setting up Black manhood training programs to prevent Black men from being what many Black feminists say Black men are, they will begin screaming sexism. One in particular was Rosa Clemente. One time she was criticizing President Barack Obama about not doing anything for Black people on Facebook. So then I said, well, Sister Rosa, fellow journalist, I said, beloved, how would you respond to the My Brother's Keeper initiative? And she said that it was sexist for excluding Black girls. How would you respond to that?
Well, That's an interesting statement. Well, first of all, and I've met the sister once or twice, talked to her once or twice. See, again, what I find is, for whatever reason, many of our women and girls embrace, a certain types of lifestyles. We have accepted, alternative life. No, I can't even call it alternative lifestyles. We have accepted certain things as being okay, for whatever reason. And what has happened, it has really hindered the development of traditional African people, African man, African woman. So with that said, going back to the Brothers Keepers thing, I did not like the Brothers Keepers thing, not because it didn't include women, not at all. I didn't like it because from what I saw of it in most cities, it was very homosexually inclined.
Whoa.
See,
Whoa.
from what I saw of it, in the places that I went that was pushing that, you had to look a little closer at the other agenda. For example, before Brothers Keepers came something called black male engagement. Black male engagement hit 3 cities. It targeted 3 cities first: Philadelphia, Atlanta, and I think Detroit. But anyway, this was a test model for the Brothers Keepers thing later. So they started this thing. It was an initial project, more or less. And you know who was behind it? George Soros and the Knight Foundation. Now, the object was to get men. Now, note, you rarely hear brothers say something like engagement. That was your first clue. Okay. So, I mean, it's an easy word, so it can be interchanged. But when you talk about black men, most time you ain't gonna hear them say we're engaging. Okay. Anyway, so they had this thing called black male engagement, and it was to encourage men, black men, particularly in these 3 targeted cities. It was to encourage them to have dialogue with each other, and then talk about and write about their experiences as being black men or males, and blah blah blah. And whoever got the more had a better story or whatever, they would get money. So you had a lot of nonprofits primarily who were applying for these sessions, these forums, these this, that, and the other, and they would get money. Well, what was happening was you had these white males who was accumulating data, doing research based on the stories that were being told. And then from that type of format and structure, you then ended up with something called Brothers Keepers.
Wow.
See?
Wow.
And so I'm telling you this because, see, we look at these things very seriously and very critically. And then when you see the infusion of homosexuality, it becomes very obvious that there's a hidden agenda. Just like with Black Lives Matter, that ended up, that started off as one thing and now ended up into another. And again, heavily funded by who? So again, we look at these things not just on the surface. We do the homework that's necessary to really evaluate various things. So again, what I would say about particularly that kind of program, to me, I'm careful with anything that's government structured. Always. You see, now it's different if black men say we're going to do a program, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. To me, that's different from either a corporate backing or a governmental backing program. That's already suspect. It should be at this stage of the game. For anyone that understands global white supremacy, you need to understand how it operates. And what was it that Dr. Francis Questley said, and Dr. Neely and Brother Neely Fuller? If you do not understand white supremacy, everything else will only confuse you.
That's right. Yeah. Indeed. Wow. She's definitely dropping some insightful wisdom. And I must say, I've seen some of those parts and pieces, and sometimes when I post things like like that there's a gay affirmative action for some black males. I mean, I wasn't suggesting that that they taking jobs away or anything, but I see that that there were many in positions, and just like we saw with in Hollywood with Terry Crews, you don't think that this happens, where black men for success or access, they are, you know,
Well, listen, I'm be honest
they
with you.
allowing for others to have their way with them. Let's just say that.
I spoke with a PR person, a black
Yes.
PR person. She told me that actually goes on. She said the stuff that Griff says and others have said. She said that's true.
Right.
She said
That's
she's
right.
seen that firsthand.
Wow.
But it's a Chi, like I said, Chi, you always have that, that straightforward analysis that we expect you
Right.
to have.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right.
So
Well,
coming up, what can we expect to see or hear, from you and the first inaugural International African Women's Solidarity and African Appreciation Day?
well, again, the Million Women March has evolved rather into a global movement. And so in that context, certainly it is about the work and moving forward in doing various things that is going to get the job done, as well as making certain that we are able to establish something for that next generation. This is very important because to me, it's not being done adequately. We're not laying down the groundwork and providing the proper tools for those that are yet to come, those that are presently with us, as well as, again, yet to come. And so MWM has designed things to do that.
Mm.
So one of the things that one of my elders taught me before he made transition, and I'm talking about Baba Reedman Battle, who
Yes.
was
Yes,
one of
Battle,
the president generals of the UNIA.
Edward
One of the things
Robinson.
that he taught me, yes, right,
Uh-huh.
that's right.
Yes.
One of the things that he taught me was very clearly, he said, you must institutionalize your work. You have to do that. And I
Yes.
promised him that I would. And
Right.
so
Right.
this year we initiate the first annual International African Women's Solidarity and Appreciation Day. Not just in Philadelphia, not just in DC, not just in Maryland, not just in New York, worldwide. And on
Okay.
this particular day, particularly for the U.S., we're telling our sisters, do not go to work, do not go to school, do not spend a penny, dime, or a dollar on that day, except with someone that looks like you.
Sure.
Do something on that day for yourself. In other words, we don't need somebody to tell us when Mother's Day is. Why are we buying into that? And I'm not saying it's not something that we shouldn't do because,
Right.
It's cool.
Right.
But at the same time, when do we create our own stuff?
Yes.
And so we have now put that in motion. With
Mm-hmm.
MWM 20, we are now initiating and preparing to install 20 sister saints
Oh, I
as
saw
a
that.
part
Yes.
of our sisterhood.
Right.
20 sister saints. You see,
Harriet Tubman, Nina Simone.
And guess what?
Yes.
It's already coming up. Listen, I've been seeing people like for 2 days now on Facebook, literally doing that. Sister, saying, Sister Saint. I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually seen it since yesterday.
Holly House.
That's right.
Catherine
That's
Dunham.
right. We're not playing. We're
Yes,
not playing.
yes.
I didn't
We're
realize it
very
was from the Million Women
serious
March, though.
about what we're doing. And so when you are serious in that context, you have to look at such a full picture. And now as a sisterhood, part of the sisterhood is that, every year you are to do something on either the Earth Day or the Ascension Day of our sister saints. It could be send a card out. It could be a poem you read to somebody or to yourself or anything that is relevant to our sister saints. See, that way we're keeping those legacies alive and developing, you see. And so again, now October 25th being the first annual, meaning every year we will observe this day as a day of solidarity and appreciation. We're telling sisters, do something for another sister. Go to a shelter. Go to a prison.
Wow.
Or do something with your own, within your family, just the women on that day. It's up to them. we're in Philly. We're getting ready to collect some swatches of fabric so that we can start a quilt, sisters.
Mm-hmm.
See, these are the things that connect us as women. There's certain things that women used to do, our women used to do, and we want to start doing those things again. We used to do canning, preserving stuff in the glass containers, things of that nature. We used to press flowers. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
How you would put some in the book, a flower, and you put it in the book in such a way that it would press it to preserve it. And then you're able to hand it down to the next generation.
Yes,
things of that nature. We don't do these things anymore.
Right.
You see, so we're talking about making certain that we can now share with each other the various traditions and cultures. Exchanging cowrie shells, things of that nature. So October 25th is the first annual African Women's Solidarity and Appreciation Day. I gave you some of the appreciation part. The solidarity is, again, our women every year will select a theme. And with the theme, we will do an action in solidarity in regards to, whatever that theme is for that year. This year, it is to put a focus on violence and abuse of our women and girls.
Sure.
Most do not know that sex trafficking in many of our communities is risen to such an incredible degree.
Yes,
the same thing with molestation
yes,
in our communities.
Absolutely. Right.
You see,
Indeed.
so we're talking about now really working on some of these problems and issues ourselves. We need not to keep going to the enemy to work out our issues.
Sure.
You see?
All right. So you can just give out that website again if anybody want to get in touch with you. And my donation is coming. I'm going to certainly support the movement. I'm able to at this time. So certainly, and I appreciate you joining me here. And you keep pushing, and certainly I'm going to definitely stay connected and get connected to what you all have been doing.
Well, I hope so, brother, because it's been a while since I talked to you.
I know, right? Yes. Yes, right. So I appreciate.
But again, we are hoping now that people will see that we are alive and kicking, we are alive and live in color. That our brothers and sisters, of course, will now really know that we are on the move, as my sisters here in Philly would say.
Yes,
and with that, support. You can go to our website at www.millionwoman, not EN, not apostrophe S, none of that.
Right.
Yes,
Okay?
ma'am.
You rarely hear anybody say the Million Man's March or the Million Men's March.
That's right.
I mean, they just try to mess us up all kinds of ways.
Right.
It's the Million Woman March, just like the Million Man March. So y'all stop messing up our name, please, because you're letting the enemy play tricks.
Yeah,
and that's what they did, because people wouldn't take us seriously and would call us any old thing, Million Women's, Woman's, anything.
Wow.
That's right.
So the enemy seized the time. Now, with that said, the millionwomanmarch20.com is our website. We have several campaigns there. One is called 1 in a Million. You can be a 1 in a Million support member by donating $1 to $1 million, of course, but $1. Black folks, come on, get real. You can't give up $1. You need to turn in everything that you even talked about being black, really, in this day and age.
That's it.
So we really need folks to support. We made an effort not to get caught up in the system in terms of getting money funded and all of that, because we believed in our people. So please make that donation or get a membership for a sister. Any sister that went to the Million Woman March in '97, she can now be an alumni member. We now have alumni membership. And our alumni will be able to vote on different things that we bring forward. For example, we're going to introduce to our people this year the question. And the question is, in the 20th century, we were able to obtain a holiday for a black man.
Wow.
Of course, that was Dr. Martin Luther King.
That's right.
The question now is, in the 21st century, is it not time for a holiday for a black woman?
Wow. Yes,
And the
indeed.
answer is yes.
All right. All
And
right.
so we're going to make that happen.
All right.
Lastly,
Go
brothers,
ahead.
I
Go
have
ahead.
to tell you this.
Okay. Okay.
Our theme, raising up the mother of civilization.
Yes.
That's our theme. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we don't want there to be any more ambiguity or confusion about who the original woman is. Keep that in mind. Lastly, our reunion is going to launch a major campaign. What is that campaign?
Okay. All right. I think we might have lost it, but definitely go to Million Women's March 20.com. Support our sister Empress Chi. Thank you all for tuning in. Tune in next week. Definitely be back. Thanks, brother Doshon.
Thanks for having me, dear
Appreciate
family.
you,
Thank you,
brother.
dear brother.
Appreciate you. So I know she got some other interviews to do tonight. So I appreciate you coming out. We had a good time a little early at the Black Men's Convention anniversary for the Million Man March. So we staying strong here. Just continue to build, continue to go to another level. Continue to read the right books. Asafo, Warriors Guide to Manhood, State of Emergency. Uh, what's this? And also that new piece, that Tariq piece is out on Haiti. So I got this book. Oh, got this book on Haiti. Which one is the Haiti book? I think it's here. All right. Yeah, yeah. So Wade Noble's got a book on Haiti. So that'll be out Thursday. 1804 is the film. Tariq Nasheed. So check it out, brothers. We got to thank our Haitians, because
Yes,
we
for
wouldn't
giving us
be
the first
here.
revolution.
None of us would be here if it wasn't for the Haitian Revolution. So, and that's what we need. We need that spirit today. All right. So thank you all. We out. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you, brother.